So basically, this is the code that the local Redis server is running. So if I start this our API server, so now let's just comment this thing off. So this is just a basic query to fetch all organization, right? So if so we just return, and if I refresh our Redis instance, all the organizations that were in the MongoDB database has
Mm-hmm.
been added to our Redis cache. The data has been denormalized. Like if you notice,
Mm-hmm.
the how the data is stored is different from how it's stored in the MongoDB because in Redis we only allow for a key value store. So basically, I denormalize the data with the organization or the collection name followed by the unique ID. Because in MongoDB, I think the unique IDs are only for on a collection basis, not DB basis. So that's why I had to denormalize this data. So after which, let's just run one more query. This time we'll add one ID, right? So let's just take this ID, add it as an argument. So basically, I'm fetching this organization. A query to fetch the organization with this ID. So we fetched it and we got it. Let's just do it a few more times. I'll just stop us. Let's start from the very first thing. See the logs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the first time that we went to take the cache, we got a 1.046 milliseconds to make a round trip to our Redis server. But mm, let me just check the logs again. So uh, so just to show you the difference between MongoDB query and Redis query for the same object, if it exists in the Redis cache, uh, just where what that is. I think it will be called this. It should be called somehow. So I think it should start working now. So if I make the query 3 to 4 more times and let it work. So basically what happens is if the object that we are looking for, in this case the organization is this ID, then we get the query back within like within 1 0 to 1 milliseconds around on an average. Whereas for MongoDB, like if I open this and I start the server for MongoDB, I think the time taken is a lot more. So yeah, so the same query takes around 3 to 4 more times to fetch the same document if it exists in Redis in MongoDB than in Redis. So basically, if it takes zero point 0.3, then it takes 1.3 milliseconds to make a round trip to the database. The important thing is that both of these servers are running on my local system. The main
Right.
benefit that we'll be getting is when the MongoDB is hosted remotely. So the network round trip to make a DB query will obviously be a lot more than the local query, right? If the instance is running locally on my system. Whereas the Redis is always going to be in memory, and if an object that we want to fetch is does exist in Redis, it will take significantly less time to fetch the object that we want. So that is, I think that has also the control. So there are a few things that we should take in mind for when we are configuring our cache, like like TTL, how long a document should remain in a cache to prevent. You have to configure it to a value so that the amount of stale data that is in the cache is minimized. So I have configured it to around 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, a document that has been added to the cache often automatically gets evicted. The second is the cache eviction policy. So for now, I've been using the LFU algorithm to evict the keys, evict the entries after a certain amount of space has been allocated. So after like 100 MBs, if the cache is full, uh, then the keys will be evicted in the LFU using the LFU algorithm. So yeah, so that is basically what happens. Any questions?
Yeah. Is the Redis implementation documented in the Talua documentation? So for
Yes, I have
installation,
the
okay.
installation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if the Redis server is not running, will Talua automatically ignore it and work as normal so that it won't
No, it
crash?
won't. No, it
Okay.
will crash. But I think I've added two different things because Redis is not supported on Windows, right? So you can either use WSL or you can use Linux. But there is also a free service like Redis Cloud. So they do offer free tiers up to 30 MB. So I have also added that documentation how to connect to a remote cloud instance of Redis for the free tiers in the documentation as well.
Okay.
So for
And
if you set, yeah,
so the Windows implementation using the WSL, oh, um,
mm,
right. What that's been documented as well, so that the end user doesn't have
yes,
an issue. Okay.
yes.
Is that a is that an industry standard solution? I'm not so familiar with Redis.
Yeah, actually, the Redis as like the main use case of Redis is like in memory cache. I think
Right.
we all know that,
Yes.
but the like it is designed for Linux systems, in mainframe systems, right? So usually it is not supported for non-Unix systems like Windows. I think MacBook and Linux can, even MacBook can uh, be able to use Linux or Redis, that is. But Windows they do have a problem, so that's why you either have to set it up on WSL or use a remote Redis instance.
Right. What I'm trying to say is that a solution that is industry ready? So, for example, is that recommended for Windows users that they use that methodology?
Oh yeah, so no. For that is only for development purposes. That is not the industry standard.
Okay.
I just added, yeah, I
Okay.
just added
So,
the documentation.
all right. So for a production system, they would need an external external Redis machine.
If in production, we'll be using Linux, right? Like
Yes, for most people they'd be using Linux, but some people may be using
yeah,
Windows. It'd be at least if we can tell people ahead of time that this is a Linux only solution, then that's
yeah.
better.
I have added in the
Right,
documentation.
rather than saying that this is a Windows or Linux thing, that would be helpful. You just need to think about that. Okay, are there any other caches that are both Windows and Linux compatible that you know of?
I am not aware which have as huge support base and that are implemented industry standard as Redis. But like I think Memcached,
So,
but even
Yeah,
I
so,
think that
Memcache,
they
yeah.
don't
so
support
Kanishka,
because
I believe that it should be possible to use Reddit if you use a WSL. on Windows.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so wasn't that the solution? So if Redis only works for Linux, then it would be able to be used on Windows via the WSL.
yeah. I have added in the documentation how to set it up using
Right.
WSL. I've
Yeah.
also added how to install WSL. It is
Right.
basically a one command to
Yeah.
install
All
WSL.
I wanted to know was that whether that would be a recommended solution for somebody wanting to run the application in a production environment. That's all I really wanted to know. The WSL
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I think in the cloud, I think in the production they use Redis cloud like redis.com, or there is also Elastic Cache from AWS. That's used
I
in
think
production,
that
right?
is for remote instances, right? But I don't think we will be using remote global caches because the main benefit for global caches is when we have many nodes in the API server. That is, we have many instances running in different regions like North, South, Asian Pacific, something like that. So that's where the global caches are used primarily. I don't think we need that. I think a simple in-memory cache will be enough.
Okay, so you're thinking in terms of the self-hosted manner, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, got it.
Yeah, we have to
And
think of self-hosted, and then after that, we need to think about people who may not want to do that and how we can use some cloud services. But
yeah, yeah,
as a starting point, this
I
is
have
fine.
added that as
Okay.
well.
Okay, good. That's
Yeah,
that's
so
helpful.
for the cloud instances, basically the same. Like you also have to have added the environment variables. Basically, one extra thing you need to configure is the password of your cloud in the environment variable. If you add that, then I think you can connect to any other cloud service that you want. So I've taken care of Linux or rather Unix-based systems, Windows using WSL, and as well as a global or a remote cloud instance services like what Siddesh has been talking about. So all three are taken care. I've also added the code for that, and I've also added in the installation document.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Kanishka. I'd like to just provide a suggestion. If you could provide any developer environment, any developer purpose related Redis instance online that is available like MongoDB, that would be also great. I think because using WSL in Windows is a bit, advanced process for new contributors. So that might create a problem in the future.
Yeah, like Atlas, there is Redis Cloud. Like it's basically the same thing. Free tier services provided that Redis provides.
Yeah,
So
if you could,
it is
just
yeah.
put out a link to, manage that as well, that could be helpful for them. Yeah.
I have already added that in the installation. I've
Okay, great, great.
completed. Yeah.
Right.
I think yeah, I think I will write a message that to read out the doc because after this pull request was merged, there will be just a small breaking change. But after that, I think you should be able to understand the documentation and just update the how to set up a Redis instance in like 2 3
I think
minutes.
so. I think another solution besides the WSL is this thing called QEMU. So it's like an open source virtualization container, like a soft like a VM. Um, you could
Yeah,
basically just come up with like a script that would start that and then install everything necessary for Talawa to run, like include Redis and everything in there. And that
okay,
way,
okay.
yeah, that way that the uninitiated user wouldn't have to deal with those things themselves and could just simply just run
Yeah,
one command.
that's also a good idea. I will add that in the idea list or something
Yeah,
as
so
an upcoming task.
right, so it'd be basically running as a VM/container. Oh, that would be self-contained, and then work from there. Okay.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right, yeah, so please investigate that. What I don't want to have is when people start implementing what we're doing, and then they start saying that it doesn't work, and then they step away from the project, and or as a developer or as an actually end user. So the more help that we can provide, the better. So that would be great. Thanks a lot, Kanishka.
Yeah,
I can do some Nick stuff, but not anytime soon. Probably near the end of October because I'm really swamped right now. I'm actually going to Seattle in 2 weeks to go talk about one of the things I've been working on. So I can't offer immediate help, but I can give help maybe 2 months.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions before we move on?